Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murders of Aaron Roseboro and Shakiri Chambers. Both were shot and killed on Sunday, April 23, 2017, in the 400 block of East 116th Street in the Green Meadows neighborhood of South LA, according to LA County Coroner records. Ricardo Mixon, Deshaun Armstead, and Daniel Hill were subsequently arrested and charged with the murders. The following is the evidence at trial. At around 4:45 p.m. on April 23, 2017, Grant was walking in Los Angeles when men in a car stopped alongside him and asked if he was a gang member. Grant turned away from them. One of the men shot Grant in the back and drove away. Grant was an Athens Park Blood gang member known as Popeye. The shooting occurred very close to the 13,000 block of South San Pedro Street, an apartment complex commonly referred to as the Villas. A parking lot at the complex was used as a hangout for the Athens Park gang members and a closely allied gang called Miller Gangster Bloods. At 4:45 p.m., LA County Sheriff Detective Gregory Richardson arrived at 129th Street in San Pedro in response to a call regarding a shooting. An individual at the scene told him that a bystander had driven the victim to the hospital. Detective Richardson went to the hospital and spoke to Grant, who did not identify who shot him. At 5:04 p.m., Defendant Hill texted someone to say his little cousin Popeye had just been shot and that he intended to go to the APs. The person advised Hill to be safe and to watch his surroundings. There are various surveillance cameras at the villas, and they recorded defendants and other gang members gathering in the parking lot shortly after Grant was shot. Defendant Armstead was wearing a red hoodie, white undershirt, long white or gray basketball shorts, black shoes, and white socks. His right sock was noticeably higher than his left and would remain so throughout the night, as documented by the videos. Defendant Hill was wearing a black baseball hat, long sleeve white shirt, light blue jeans, and a black backpack. After arriving at the lot, he changed his shoes. Defendant Mixon was wearing a red hoodie and black pants with large white patches or symbols and red shoes. Meanwhile, LAPD officer Manuel Armenta, who was assigned to monitor Athens Park and Miller gangsters, became aware of Grant's shooting after seeing gang members discussing it on social media. Officer Armenta had encountered Grant multiple times in the past, both at the Villas lot and in company of Athens Park gang members. Seeing the social media discussion of the shooting, Officer Armenta and his partner went to the Villas lot to talk to the gang members congregating there, gather information about Grant's shooting, and attempt to discourage a retaliatory shooting. The officers arrived at the lot at around 8:30 p.m. and interacted with approximately 18 men. Since it was such a large crowd, 2 other officers arrived to assist. The interactions between the officers and the men at the lot were conversational. There were no threatening comments or conduct by anyone. The officers found no weapons on them, and they received a request for assistance and departed the lot at around 8:55 p.m. Before leaving, Officer Armenta directed all the men to go home. At 8:57 p.m., Defendant Hill left the Villas lot in the Audi that would be used in the murders. McKinley was driving, and Defendant Hill was in the back seat. The 4-door Audi had distinctive features, including that when its doors were open, round lights were projected on the ground. At 9:17 p.m., Defendants Armstead and Mixon left the Villas lot in a white Cadillac STS. Meanwhile, victims Aaron Roseboro and his cousin Shakiri Chambers were walking in front of a townhouse where Roseboro lived. Neither victim were involved with gangs. However, they were young and black, and Roseboro was wearing a Yankees baseball cap, which was commonly worn by members of the East Coast Crips. The townhouse was on a residential street that had not been the site of gang activity for several years, but it was in territory claimed by East Coast Crips. At 9:39 p.m., the white Cadillac STS drove past the street. At 9:42 p.m., Defendant Hill, now driving the Audi, pulled up alongside the 2 victims and stopped. Defendants Armstead and Mixon exited the Audi and immediately started firing. Mixon was holding a rifle and fired numerous shots, striking Roseboro 5 times and Chambers 4 times. Defendant Armstead was holding a handgun. He fired a single shot into the living room of the townhouse. His gun then jammed and he attempted to clear the jam. Defendants Armstead and Mixon re-entered the Audi and Defendant Hill drove them away. Chambers died immediately. Roseboro died a few minutes later. At 9:46 p.m., the Audi was videotaped returning to the Villas, with Defendant Hill still driving and Defendants Armstead and Mixon still inside. Although their faces were not visible on the recorded video, Hill's long white sleeves and the red hoodies worn by defendant Armstead and Mixon were visible in the recording. The Audi returned from the north, which was consistent with taking a direct path from where the murders had occurred, approximately 1.3 miles from the villas. The Audi drove out of view of the video cameras for a few seconds. Less than a minute later, defendants walked into view of the video cameras from where the Audi had gone, still dressed as they had been at the time of the murders, except defendant Armstead had removed his red hoodie. In the minutes before and during the murders, several calls were placed between Mixon and Hill's phones. Cell phone location data showed both phones in the area of the murders at the time of the murders. Defendant Mixon was arrested on April 28, 2017, and participated in a recorded interview with Detective Samuel Murillo and Sarah Collian later that day. He said that he left the villas in the white Cadillac and was dropped off so he could get in the Audi. He claimed that he was directed to drive the car. In discussing why he switched cars, he indicated that it was because he felt he might be harmed if he refused, and expressed concern about cooperating with police. When asked why he committed the shooting, defendant Mixon asked if it was a rhetorical question, and then answered that it was because of Grant's shooting. Mixon said that he arrived at the villas right after Grant was shot and saw him bleeding heavily before a friend took Grant to the hospital. In describing seeing Grant bleeding, defendant Mixon began crying. On May 2, 2017, defendant Hill was arrested and participated in a recorded interview with detectives Murillo and Collian. During the interview, defendant Hill was shown video taken at the villas before the murders, and he identified himself as the person wearing a backpack and changing his shoes. He said that he got in the car with others, went to the location of Mettler Street, and socialized for roughly 30 minutes. After being shown video of the Audi returning to the villas, defendant Hill described parking it out of sight of cameras. Hill briefly used ambiguous language, but then confirmed that he had parked and exited the Audi. He did not want to identify the men he was videotaped walking with. He said that older people directed him to drive the car. He claimed that he drove the Audi to the villas from Mettler Street. Detective Murillo explained that he knew that defendant Hill was lying about merely driving the Audi from Mettler Street to the villas. Detective Murillo said that although they knew defendant Hill was not one of the shooters, they wanted to know the nature of his involvement, whether he knew about the plan, and whether he had been ordered to participate. Defendant Hill responded, "I was ordered to do it. I was pushed to do it." On July 3, 2017, defendant Armstead was arrested in Las Vegas. When stopped, he gave a fake name and presented a driver's license, credit card, and social security card in that fake name. Prior to the arrest, defendant Armstead had posted on social media that it was stressful to be on the run. Officer Armenta testified that the primary activities of the Athens Park and Miller gangsters was committing illegal narcotic sales and violent crimes, including murder. Members of those gangs had committed murders and had also been killed themselves. At the time of Grant's shooting, those gangs' only significant rival in the area was the East Coast Crips. Like Grant, defendant Armstead was an Athens Park gang member. His tattoos included one that indicated that he was a Crip killer, and one that reflected an alliance between Athens Park and Miller gangsters. It was unknown whether he had the Crip killer tattoo before the instant murders. Defendant Hill, too, was an Athens Park gang member. Prior to the instant murders, he had Athens Park tattoos and had been photographed throwing a sign indicating disrespect to the East Coast Crips. After the murders, he got several gang tattoos on his face, including one that indicated that he was a Crip killer, and one insulting the East Coast Crips. Defendant Mixon was a Miller Gangster Blood member. After the murders, Mixon got new Miller Gangster Blood tattoos. During the prosecutor's closing argument, it became apparent to counsel that defendant Armstead was about to make an outburst. The trial court excused the jury. Defendant Armstead directed profanity at the prosecutor and said he no longer wished to be in the courtroom and confessed to committing the murders. "Athens Park Bloods, we did that, so what? Fuck these people." Upon resuming the proceedings, the trial court informed the jury that defendant Armstead had chosen to be absent. The following day, defendant Armstead was permitted to return to the courtroom. However, as soon as his attorney began his closing argument, defendant Armstead produced either feces or vomit and started rubbing it on his face and the table. The jury was once again removed from the courtroom before order could be restored and the proceedings resumed. Following the trial, the jury convicted each defendant of 2 counts of first-degree murder and found true the multiple murder, gun, and gang allegations. Defendants Armstead and Mixon were each sentenced to 70 years to life in state prison, plus 2 consecutive terms of life without the possibility of parole. Defendant Hill was sentenced to 50 years to life in state prison, plus 2 consecutive life without parole terms. Aaron Andre Roseboro was 23 years old at the time of death. Sha'Carri Chambers was 23 years old at the time of death.